Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Rising water is considered a flood, but for as long as it is neutralized, the causes will be infinitesimal, counteracting Nigerian flood menace. It seems the parable, he who the gods wants to kill, the first make mad, was made simply because of present-day Nigeria. Flood has enveloped major cities, towns, and villages around the coastal states and the country, and our Minister for Water Resources seems lost on any solution to the problems, despite the solution staring us in the face. The minister blamed the cause of the current flooding on heavy rainfall, but forgot to mention that the tributaries of River Niger and River Benue, which are supposed to be critical drainage channel to any heavy water in the country, now have zero carrying capacity as a result of lack of dredging over the years. A drive from Makurdi to Vandekia through the bank of the River Benue or through Onitsha or Patani in River Niger during dry season will reveal that the river has been covered by the seashore, as you could almost walk across some parts of these rivers. Consequently, any incidents of heavy or sustained rainfall or release of water from any of the upstream dam would have all the water simply overflowing the bank of these rivers, resulting in massive flooding of adjacent communities. However, even studies have debunked the minister's theory of flooding caused by heavy rainfall, as rain in Nigeria has consistently remained the same since 2001, standing at 1295 millimeters. According to Austin Avuru, an oil and gas expert, a former MD of Seplat, dredging the River Benue to Lokoja and River Niger from Barrow in Niger State to the Atlantic Ocean to a minimum drought of 10 feet will not only transform both rivers to the same economic value as the Nile is to Egypt, their tributaries also will constitute a critical drainage channel to whatever dam might have been opened in Cameroon and ensure that the adjoining towns and villages remain safe from flooding, as we also reap the benefit of the fertile bank of this river, which benefits are immeasurable. So what happened to the 34.8 billion naira awarded for the dredging of River Niger from Baru to Atlantic in 2008 by the Yar'Adua administration? The Jonathan administration revisited the issues and revised the sum to 40 billion in 2011. Where are all these monies? Were they ever released? If yes, what happened to the money and why were the rivers never dredged? Plenty questions. As usual, no answer. According to the same Austin Avuru, the state government also share in these blames, as a trip across most of the South-South states would reveal the aquatic potential in dredging most of these rivers, as maintaining the River Niger and River Benue tributaries that crisscross the low-lying part of this state to some minimum depth would not only ease pressure on most of the road, but also serve as the main arteries of well-engineered drainage master plan for the villages and towns in this state. But trust Nigeria, the less critical thinking you can engage in, the more suited you are for leadership. I shame. I will therefore advocate. If we like, let us turn the displaced victim camps to campaign ground and share 100 million naira or 5 million naira and 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread to them. Unless we address the root cause of the problem, which is employing a reputable company to dredge both rivers to enable them taking more water, the problem will persist and we keep shifting blame from God, rain to Cameroon and maybe soon Chad and even Ghana until we are completely overrun by water from God. Trust. The religious in Nigeria will blame it on our sins and fornication. Well, time will tell. That's all time we permit us to take today. But for previous episodes, just check out all our social media platforms shown on your screen and share your thought with us also. A little problem you leave today can leave you without a little tomorrow. See you next week.
Many thanks for joining us on News Now at this hour. My name is Sinsola Adigun. The 5 aggrieved People's Democratic Party governors on Sunday met with other party heavyweights where they discussed fresh options as the hopes of reconciling with the camp of the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar seems to be failing. The governors, who said their group will now be known as the Integrity Group, reiterated that they are open to reconciliation talks. They met in Lagos at the residence of the party's former Deputy National Chairman, Bode George, and announced the formation of the Integrity Group. At the end of the meeting, former Governor of Plateau State, John Ajang, who briefed journalists, explained that the group is still open to consultations in resolving the crisis rocking the main opposition party.
This meeting have decided to stand on the decisions we took at our last Port Harcourt meeting. And we hereby again reiterate that the window for reconciliation in our great party, the PDP, remains open.
Terrorists have reportedly abducted 44 people in Kanwa village in the Zermi local government area of Zamfara state. An indigene of the area, Garbi Idi, who said those abducted were mostly women and children. Idi, however, explained that 5 women managed to escape. According to him, the bandits, who were on motorcycles, invaded the village and divided themselves into 2 groups. He maintained that the terrorists on several occasions attacked the village despite the huge sum of money they were collecting as levy from the community. He also lamented that the whole village was now empty as the people had fled to other places for fear of another attack. Meanwhile, efforts to speak to the State Police Public Relations Officer, SP Mohammed Shehu, were abortive. To electoral matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says it will clean up its voter register to address the irregularities observed by Nigerians. Since the list of voters was made public across polling units and on the Commission's website, Nigerians have raised issues of discrepancies. Some of the disparities include underage voters who falsified dates of birth and others who appeared to have been registered multiple times. Speaking in a television interview, INEC's Director of Voter Registration and Publicity, Victor Aluko, said the Commission would ensure that underage persons do not participate in the forthcoming elections. He added that INEC's revision officers would work on all other complaints raised after they are collated. Still on INEC, the Commission has said it will print a total of 187 million ballot papers. This was made known by the National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee, Festus Okoye, on Friday. Okoye, who spoke at a roundtable with bureau chiefs and editors in Abuja, said 93.5 million ballot papers will be used on the 25th of February 2023 presidential election, and the remaining 93.5 million ballot papers will be for runoff of the presidential election in a case where there is no clear winner. The same, he said, will be applicable to states.
The law has outlined how candidates will emerge and how a presidential candidate or a president will emerge in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, because of the limited time allowed the Commission by the law, in case a candidate does not emerge on the first ballot, the Commission prints ballots for runoff election when we are printing ballots for the main election. In other words, if 93 million Nigerians are on the ballot for the presidential election, we will print 93 million ballots for the first election, and at the same time, print 93 million ballots for a runoff election in case a winner does not emerge on the first ballot.
As part of measures to prevent electoral violence in the upcoming general elections, the federal government has deployed personnel of the Department of State Services, the Army operatives of the Civil Defense Corps, as well as Federal Fire Service personnel in INEC offices nationwide. The Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, who made this known during a meeting with the chairman of leading political parties at the force headquarters in Abuja, disclosed that the police recorded 52 violent cases in 6 weeks. The police chief says he has also directed security services to enhance intelligence gathering, sharing and utilization to stem acts of political violence which have assumed an increasing dimension in recent weeks.
We shall put machineries in motion that will in the most proactive manner identify, isolate, apprehend and bring any political actor and put soldiers they might be motivating to encourage violence at political rallies or any other political engagement to deserve justice. We have been receiving reports of some state governors who encourage political talks and subnational security outfits under their control to disrupt seamless and statutorily guaranteed campaign activities of parties or candidates with whom they hold opposition political views. Call on the police and other security agencies to remain professional, apolitical and impartial in the performance of their election security operations and to be firm in dealing with electoral violence.
In a bid to tackle the menace of poverty in the country, analysts have urged the federal and state government to empower the grassroots and ensure a sustained livelihood for citizens. Reacting to the National Bureau of Statistics Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index report on TV360's flagship program, DG360, public affairs analyst Ahmed Shehu urged the federal government to empower the citizens. He maintained that the local government autonomy should also be considered to ensure governance at the grassroots level.
We need to take our responsibility seriously. And it has to start with our governance system, of which I know is difficult and it's a dream. Maybe in the near future, we're going to get this local government autonomy that we have all been fighting for. You know how it happened, how many governors voted, and how the president really got a setback in ensuring that this thing come to pass. Until and unless we get the local government autonomy, the governors will continue anointing the local government chairman, and they will continuously be controlling the resources, and it will not be the resources will not be allowed to go down to the grassroots where the services will be provided to the people. And another aspect is the people also, they can be able to start asking for this good governance. How are we going to do that? The election is now around the corner. If the people want, they can start this process by holding the governors accountable. In all the state government, since we know that the only problem for this local government autonomy to be passed is some of the governors. And we know the data we have from the civil society, we know the governors that have passed, we know the governor that has kicked against the local government autonomy. We can be able to hold them accountable. Let's sign a charter of demand with all the governors that once you are elected, you're going to sign this local government, you're going to support the process. If you do not support the process, we're going to kick you out. And this is the process we need to start. It's high time, I think, we Nigerians stop lamenting and start taking our action. There are a lot of countries that have come out of this because where does the governors come from? It's from us. Yes. There are people like us that we live together, we die together, and they get the responsibility to be the governors. And that doesn't make them God. And we need to start talking to them so that they should understand that they have a stake on it. And from the notice here, for us to get it right, we need to change how we do the things. We need to empower the grassroots as observed by the last speaker. Empowering them, we should stop this political poverty elevation about the stomach infrastructures, giving money in a television where you see a heap of money being distributed to people. No, we need a sustained means of livelihood.
The Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit has flagged suspicious transactions valued at over 150 trillion naira between January and March 2022, according to its suspicious transaction report / suspicious activity report released on Sunday. The development came as the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and NFIU officials said they had intensified their surveillance on campaign spending by political parties and their candidates ahead of the 2023 polls. Multiple AFCC and NFIU sources say their personnel were carrying out a series of joint operations to close in on several suspicious spending by parties, candidates and top politicians. NFIU, formerly a unit under the EFCC, is the central national agency responsible for the coordination of the country's anti-money laundering, counter-terrorist financing and counter-proliferation financing frameworks. Meanwhile, the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, says the Nigeria Postal Service, NIPOST, has been unbundled into about 3 subsidiaries to ensure effective operation and to make it more viable as a revenue-generating agency of the government. Pantami disclosed this on Thursday at the Budget Defense meeting of the Joint Senate and House of Representatives Committees on Communication, Telecommunications and ICT and Cyber Crimes. The minister told the Joint Committee that NIPOST has already been unbundled into Property and Development Company, Transport and Logistics and Microfinance Banks. Pantami also disclosed that the sum of 10 billion naira will be invested in the new NIPOST to get it started. However, the Joint Committee questioned the process of arriving at an unbundled NIPOST as well as the 10 billion naira for funding it.
When we inherited, NIPOST was an operator and also a regulator. You cannot allow a regulator of the sector and at the same time to be an operator. It's very wrong. And secondly, maybe you forgot, when you chair a committee jointly with the chair of communications, you even push and insisted that we should ensure that the companies take up immediately so that government will be able to make use of them. And this investment is to be done by the Ministry of Finance. So they are to manage the fund. And NIPOST has a power also of supervision. That is why even on the board of the companies, NIPOST is active. The Postmaster General of the NIPOST is part of the board.
The Parliament will deal with the issues. I don't want to be able to discuss how we will deal with the issue. I'm happy that you have given us that clarification.
Thank you.
So the Parliament will know what to do, because you can't afford to send money to uncreated components. Laws are laws, and if we pass this law in terms of money, it becomes legal. Do you create money to issues that has not been legally domiciled by National Assembly?
We'll go on a short break here and be back with other stories. Stay with us.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media before you broadcast that false message. Think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dssPR@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back. Now, in case you missed any of our news bulletins or for more updates, do log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on all our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria. On Facebook, we're at TV360 Online. Some nations could be paying 10 times the price of Paxlovid's generic equivalent as the World Health Organization DG Tedros Ghebreyesus calls for treatment access to battle acute and long COVID-19. According to new analysis from Oxfam and the People's Vaccine Alliance, rich countries have secured almost 3 times as many courses of a WHO-recommended COVID-19 medicine, Pfizer's Paxlovid. On the eve of crunch talks at the World Trade Organization over intellectual property rules for COVID-19 treatment and tests, the organizations are warning of the same worrying trend of inequity with COVID vaccines. A health worker who delivered the first COVID-19 vaccination outside clinical trials has been recognized for her contribution to nursing. May Parsons, a modern matron at the University Hospital in Coventry, received an Endeavour Award as she graduated with a master's degree in health management from the institution. Parsons administered the vaccine to Margaret Keenan in December 2020 when she worked on the hospital wards while she studied for the degree. We'll go on another short break here and be back with business updates. Do stay with us.
Hello? Yeah, I found your wallet in front of a supermarket. Meet me at Apple Junction. Yes, I'll be waiting for you.
Now we find out. 2 of us.
Thank you very much, officer. You know, it's surprising that men like you still exist in the police force.
Yes, oh, yes.
This is just a token of my appreciation.
Oh, no, you don't need to do this. We are only doing our job.
Thank you very much. God bless you. Now I know police is really my friend.
Yes.
Friend. Hey. Okay, which came out with this one now? I don't understand.
You know your problem. You are greedy. I'm a policeman who is doing his job. All forms of corruption in the force, not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
In business, the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Pengasan, has threatened to commence a fresh industrial action following the sacking of its members in an oil firm, Fedos Nigeria Limited. Pengasan Assistant General Secretary in Port Harcourt Zone, Tamano Dapu, disclosed this in Port Harcourt on Sunday. The union said the firm violated the extant laws by terminating the appointment of 4 of its members who joined Pengasan, adding that they were exercising their absolute rights as guaranteed in Section 40 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Dapu urged all the branch chairman and chapter chairman of the association to be on red alert for the imminent strike. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) says Nigerians should brace for higher food prices and risks in 2023 due to recent floods and high fertilizer prices. The Washington-based lender disclosed this in its Nigeria staff concluding statement of the 2022 Article 4 mission report. The IMF said high food insecurity was compounding the pandemic's effect on Nigeria's vulnerable citizens, adding that despite Nigeria's limited direct exposures, the war in Ukraine was affecting the nation through higher domestic food prices. The IMF has also predicted that since recent floods have affected agricultural productivity, saying that food prices would worsen in 2023. Oil prices dropped to trade near 2-month lows on Monday, having earlier slid by around $1 a barrel as supply fears receded, while concerns over fuel demand from China and US dollar strength weighed on prices. Brent crude futures for January had slipped 74 cents to $86.88 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures for December were at $79.40 a barrel, down 68 cents, ahead of the contract expiry date later on Monday. The more active January contract last fell 59 cents to $79.52 a barrel. Both benchmarks closed on Friday at their lowest since September 27, extending losses for a second week, with Brent down 9% and WTI 10% lower. There have been calls for climate financing from developed nations and the need to clear debts to put an end to climate injustice. The calls have come on the backdrop of the recently concluded 77th Climate Conference held in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, supporting the calls for more donations from developed nations, which account for the Earth's population. In an interview on TV360's Nigeria flagship program, TV360, Suleiman Arigbabu, an environmentalist, also called for an increase in the funds, saying no amount can salvage the disaster done to developing countries.
Okay, when you have this Green Climate Fund, it will mobilize $100 billion up to 2020 annually to support developing countries to follow a different path to their development and to deal with their immediate climate realities, especially adaptation. As we speak, nothing of that money, less than 15 billion in all, over the length of over 10 years, have been mobilized. Pledges have been made, not much of the pledges have been fulfilled. So that's the problem. And Africa is now saying that we don't even need this your $100 billion a year. Our needs goes beyond that. Africa is looking at over an amount close to 6 trillion to be able to deal with climate change, especially on the area of adaptation. And it's saying we need to move this money even to $150 billion a year. But even the $100 billion that was initially pledged has never come through. That is one. Of course, there are a lot of money that is pledged on bilateral levels. But we know the politics of some of these aids, especially from so-called development aid, which is what is being one of the principles when negotiating climate financing, especially in the context of developed countries paying their climate debt, is that this fund, there's a particular principle that this fund should be new and additional to development aid. So it's not that you change the money you are giving you are helping to support on malaria and some other things. You now go and recapture it and call it some climate fund. So we have a lot of bilateral aid going on, bilateral pledges. Some are in terms of grants, some are in terms of commercial finances, you know, but over time that. But the main issue is that you have climate debt. The whole convention, the UNFCCC convention, which is out of the World Summit, is that in 1992 in Rio, is that there are climate debts that are owed. If all of us will go the dirty path to development, we'll crash the world. So that some people have followed this path and they have made a lot of money, they have built their economy, and so they have historical debt, they have climate debts to pay.
In sport, Qatar became the first home team to lose their opening World Cup match as Ecuador cruised to a 2-0 victory over the host, with Ener Valencia scoring twice in the tournament curtain raiser on Sunday. Asian champions Qatar enjoyed the backing of the majority of the crowd at the 60,000 capacity Al Bayt Stadium, but could not follow a glitzy opening ceremony with a statement performance. Ecuador thought they had made a dream start when they silenced the home fans as Valencia headed in, only for the goal to be rolled out by VAR for an offside in the build-up. Valencia did break the deadlock with a penalty in the 16th minute and doubled his tally just after the half-hour mark. In the 92-year history of the tournament, home countries had previously won 16 and drawn 6 of their opening matches. Well, that's our bulletin on news now at this hour. Many thanks for watching. I'm Simisola Ajigun. Bye for now.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Abisola Adebayo. This year's COP27 Climate Summit in Egypt is finally coming to an end, with nearly 200 countries racing to strike a deal to steer the world towards cutting planet-warming emissions and scale-up finance for countries being ravaged by climate impacts. Some negotiators and observers warn that failure to agree on such loss and damage funding could sour the United Nations talks and thwart other deals. The issue has leapt to the top of political priorities at the summit after more than 130 developing countries successfully demanded it was added to the agenda for the first time. following more than a week of talks that left much unresolved and featured speeches from dozens of world leaders but scant announcements of new fundings and pledges to cut emissions faster. Negotiators now face a mammoth list of items on which to clinch deals by the end of the week. Announcements so far include a few $100 million of funding for poorer nations pledged by Germany, Australia, the United States of America, and others, far off from the hundreds of billions that vulnerable countries need to cope with escalating droughts, floods, and rising seas every year. Government ministers have since taken over the negotiations in the summit to also hunt for a deal that attempts to avoid any weakening of ambition to address climate change. So, has this COP27 summit really achieved its target, and did it eventually live up to expectations? Joining me to discuss all of this further is Olumide Idowu. He is the co-founder of International Climate Change Development Initiative. Thank you so much for joining me on the program, Mr. Olumide. So, you know, it's just a day until the end of COP27. What would you say has been achieved so far? What are some of the highlights and discussions that have been held so far, especially regarding the African continent?
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this privilege to speak. Just so you will know that as we are fighting for the climate conversation, and as we are fighting for the response for African countries, I can tell us now that the loss and damage conversation lately, we've been able to get the technical support from the developed country. But that was related to the San Diego agreement. But we are still looking at what is going to happen. And as I'm talking to you, another session is starting again on the loss and damage conversation. And we are always, you know, according to the African Group of Negotiators, we've not really gotten what we are looking for, because as long as Africa is the part of continent that is suffering and, you know, past people is the brunt of climate change, then this conference is supposed to be an implementation conference, but we are not seeing that as of now. 2 days ago, gender, you know, constituency also have the same thing. Nothing is coming forth. We don't want to continue to have promises. We don't want to continue to have pledges that is not, you know, translate to implementation. Australia, United States have pledged another money. How come are we getting pledges when the one that pledged a couple of years ago, the $100 billion, have not really even been, you know, given to developing countries, the global south? So how do we continue to talk about this issue and turn the conference to like Christmas, you know, activities yearly? So for me, I think the African Group of Negotiators, they are really doing their best, and it is high time for us as African countries to start looking at the kind of languages we are using in negotiating, so that we not look as if we are begging for money, we are just asking for money every time. But we need a concrete action that will put us in a place whereby everything we talk about will really come to implementation. But for this conference, I think we are still a step backward as well again. But for the issue of loss and damage, which I'm also following up, I can tell you that as of yesterday night, we've been able to reach a support for technical support. But when you say technical support, you need to define it. So those are the kind of things we are still looking forward to know whether we are still on the right track when it comes to loss and damage, to know whether we're still on the right track when we're talking about adaptation. So it's for us, it's very, very disappointing that we are still going back and forth with promises and pledges rather than implementation that we are looking for.
Okay, yeah, so you said the African Group of Negotiators, they are yet to get what they want. What exactly would that be?
As I'm saying, it's concerning they're making pledges. Fine. You are telling them that you are making pledges, but how do you make sure that these pledges turns to implementation? Because they've made such pledges in 2019 in Spain. They make such pledges through the global Glasgow Pact. What is happening now is you've not talked about the implementation of what you've said before. Now you are making another pledge. I remember during the speech of the United States President, they make emphasis on the flood and the disaster that is happening to some countries across the world. But the pledges are really not concrete in the sense that how will it translate to implementation? That is what we are talking about.
I mean, apparently, and with what you've actually said, finance has been on the front burner of this particular summit. African nations have made demands for monetary commitment from these developed nations. Do you actually think that money would solve the issues of climate change in Africa?
Yeah, anybody that you ask that will say yes. But how are we asking for this money? Are we asking for this money in loan? Or we are asking for this money by making sure that the Africa have suffered from their inputs? So they need to give us this money, not by loan. Most of all this money have been given to us by loan. We don't even have money to solve our problem presently. They are giving us a loan. When do we pay back? So what they need to do for us is to give money for adaptation. And money for adaptation cannot be loan. We're talking about mitigation as well. Technology is there. How many African countries can actually invest in technology to drive the economy? So financial mechanisms need to be spelled out. And people need to understand that how to access this finance also matters a lot. So every money being given to Africa must not come in loan. There must be a negotiation on how this money is going to be spent, what this money is going to be used for, so that we will not continue to find ourselves owning developed countries every time and down. Thank you.
You know, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni and even other African leaders that are in the summit, they've accused the Western countries of, you know, reprehensible double standards when it comes to commitment to stop climate change. Would you agree with this, that other developed nations are not so invested in restoring the earth?
Well, that's a conversation that needs to be debated, because every leader of every country is making sure that they speak to their needs. For the case of Nigeria, we're talking much about the energy transition to our ETP, the national determined contribution. We're also looking at loss and damage. But for every country that is talking about anything, that means that is the urgent action that is needed to be solved. But why I always bring in the African group of negotiators is because they are the ones that negotiate on behalf of Africa in some particular instance. The issue of climate finance, the issue of loss and damage. So each country have their own demand, and those demands are also bilateral conversation with investors, with institutions. So those world leaders that have said their own is based on the need of their country and how they see climate change today.
You know, with the summit finally coming to an end, would you say there's been workable agreements in place that would maybe shape climate actions before the next summit next year?
Well, we are always hopeful, but I'm just optimistic that we will still get back home and nothing. To be very frank with you, we've not gotten to anywhere. And the only thing that I've worked in this conference is that a lot of countries have had a lot of bilateral agreement with institutions that is also promising. But those promises are promises that is tackling some specific issues. But when it comes to the negotiation table, we've not really gotten the developed country to make commitment. That is a genuine commitment that will solve the climate crisis. To our world leaders or African leaders to start looking inward. How can we retool the ideas and the opportunities that we have now as our natural resources to change the narrative of what we are looking at? So for me, in the scale of 1 to 10, I think we are 4 over 10 because we've not really gotten what we are looking for because of the technical support they say they are giving to the Santiago framework. Maybe that is the only thing I can say as the major outcome for us as a continent coming from Africa or the global south. But for now, the actual outcome we are looking at is not yet reflected in the implementation of action back home in Africa.
So I was asking you to talk about the other contentious issues in the talks in the summit that's still really unresolved, despite a Friday deadline.
Yeah, okay. So climate finance is a big issue. It looks like nobody is attending to that presently, because you know, when somebody said our country, our continent, Africa is owning them, it shows us that we are still in that frame of climate finance denier now. There's nobody that's making commitment and genuine commitment on climate finance. And the issue of mitigation, it has turned to they are leveraging on our incapacity when it comes to technology to make us to understand that are we ready for mitigation. And when there's no how you want to talk about adaptation, mitigation, loss and damage without financing for communities. So those kind of issues are the issue that is coming in between all this conversation we are having. So I think, like I said, African developing countries, the global south, we need to retune the conversation to make them to understand that we are not begging. It is our right to get financing for adaptation, financing for loss and damage.
Anyways, you know, briefly now, I want you to talk about expectations for the G20 summit. You know, other people see it as another opportunity to call on these rich nations to honor their promises to tackle climate change. So what are your expectations of the discussion, and do you expect to see some major deals, especially on climate finance, to be made?
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, G20 has turned to something like Christmas that we go every time. But my own expectation is just very simple. African leaders, how do we start thinking inwardly to make sure that we are always ready before we add the conversation with these developed countries? Because we are still the ones giving them advantage of what they are doing, and we need to tackle that issue now. Another thing again we need to look at critically is that are we ready to access financing as a country? If we are not ready, then we are just, or as a continent, then it is not going to work. Like they said, anything for us without us, it is not meant for us. So every conversation they are going to be having that is not including the local community that is suffering from the brunt of climate change, then it is not meant for us. So what leaders during G20 should look at what they are causing, and African leaders should look at how to galvanize support from the or to actually talk about the issue that is climate change is facing. Not only in, asking for the money, but letting them know the story that is happening on ground. Because when you don't show those things to them, for them to understand numbers of people that are displaced, numbers of people that are into poverty, energy poverty, then nothing will actually happen. They will always think that we are asking for money. So what leaders, African leaders, we should not go and ask for money, rather ask for or look for stories that will be able to speak to these people for them to release that fund that is meant for Africa to work on adaptation and lesson damage.
Well said, Mr. Olumide Idowu, environmental expert. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today, and thank you for your insights. Well, we'll go on a short break now, and when we come back, we'll be talking about economy. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's now turn our attention to the economy. For the 9th straight month, Nigeria's inflation rate has seen a steady rise. In the month of October, the Consumer Price Index, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, accelerated to 21.09%, marking a 0.32 point increase from 20.77% recorded in September. This is coming as food inflation in October 2022 also increased to 23.72% from 18.39% in the corresponding month last year. According to the NBS, the possible factors responsible for the increase include disruption in the supply of food products, increase in the cost of importation due to the persistent currency depreciation, and the general increase in the cost of production. Now, for more insight into this development, I'm joined on the program by Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu. He is the MD CEO of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. Thank you so much for joining me on the program. Let me start by asking, what exactly do you make of the latest inflation rate of 21.09%? What would you say are the possible factors driving this increase? And are we actually going to continue like this even as we move towards the festive season? I mean, December now.
It was expected that the inflation rate would increase at the end of October. So this is expected, and the factors are already known and already there. But of course, some of the factors were already existing before the end of the month of October. The distortion in the supply chain, which was caused by the war in Russia and Ukraine. Just note that Russia produces the highest quantity or volume of grain and wheat in the world, and of course followed by Ukraine. So these are two largest producers of these grains, and that has affected the prices of bread and other things that depend on flour for production. And of course, so, like I said, some of the causes were already there before now. We already talked about the insecurity that has existed in the various farms in the north, especially. In fact, right now, spread all over Nigeria. So many farmers no longer enter their farms. So because of that, there is a distortion in the supply chain, and that has actually increased the food inflation. We already know what the diesel price, energy cost is today. You just know that many people that are producing one thing or the other are no longer are struggling to actually cover their costs because of the high cost of production. So these are the extents we have seen. Of course, just recently we saw where the exchange rate shot to as high as almost 900 naira per dollar, even though it came down a little, but of course it's still as high as we can imagine. So these are the major things that are increasing the inflation rate. And you just mentioned the seasonal period. Usually within this period of the season, from October, November, December, we'll experience the seasonal inflation that is caused by demand pool. And so these are things that will happen, and so which presupposes that the month of November will also experience another increase due to the season that we're entering into. So these are the things that actually have caused the increases and the rise in our inflation rates.
Right, so how do you think the Central Bank of Nigeria will react to the rise in inflation, especially as regards to the interest rate?
Of course, we expect that if they continue to meet, we expect right now, even with the decision to have a redesign of the Naira, I expect that certain ratios are going to change. I expect that the CRR is going to increase in order for just to enable them mop up money in circulation, M1, M2 in circulation. So we expect that this will happen. Whether they are going to react immediately by increasing the MPR is not certain. I mean, it can go neither here nor here, either here nor here. So we expect that they may wait for certain increases to be more than this, because they just increased the MPR just the other day. So we don't expect them to increase the MPR just because of this marginal increase. Otherwise, I expect that the CRR will increase because they want to really use that to mop up more money in circulation.
Okay, so explicitly now, like you said earlier, it appears rising inflation is not just a Nigerian thing, as even global economies such as the United Kingdom are experiencing the same. How would you react to this?
Yeah, obviously, not just the UK, all the countries of the world, because the supply distortions that we're talking about has affected all the countries of the world. Of course, we're talking about the supply of gas, the supply of petroleum products. European countries are heavily hit right now. Prices of petroleum products have gone so high that people are beginning to even demonstrate in some areas. So these are the kind of, the same thing that is causing our own inflation is causing it globally. And so, but where we need to watch are those ones that are within our control, the ones that are peculiar with our own environment. We need to work on those ones if they are within our control. But the one that is global, there is little or nothing we can do. Of course, what we can possibly do in such areas could just be to localize our own production, have some production of make sure that our raw materials are sourced We'll grow agro products in grains and in wheat and other grain products. We'll grow them locally and reduce our dependence on importation. But these are things that will happen in the long run. Right now, I think it's going to affect productivity. Of course, recently we heard about the flood that filled up many parts of the country. That is also going to affect the prices of rice and some other grains that have been affected. So these are the things we expect. So for us to reduce the inflation rate, all we do is just to make sure that we don't depend so much on some of these imported goods and grow ours and do things within ourselves in order for the global inflation impact not to hit us adversely.
So, increasing inflation is not the only challenge facing Nigeria's economy. We also have issues like fall of the Naira and, many other issues. How exactly do you think, or what do you think the government can do, to cushion the impact on the common Nigerians now?
Yeah, the economy of the country is controlled by monetary policy, by trade policy, by fiscal policy. And these are all things controlled by different areas of government. We know that CBN controls the fiscal policy. CBN has been doing a whole lot of things to ensure that the pains and the exchange rate, the impact of the exchange rate does not continue to affect Nigerians. But to what extent they have achieved results in this area is that which we need to question. On the fiscal area, we just know that, of course, certain aspects of, we know that our revenue base is not just anywhere, and we know what the revenue to debt service ratio is, the highest in the world. And so these are all the things. So what we need to do is just identify those things that have affected our economy. Once we identify them, we will now isolate them and start making efforts to solve them, reduce their impacts one after the other. If I talked about revenue base, we then have to talk about what is that affecting our revenue. Is it the oil revenue or other revenues that we're not collecting? So we need to work on our revenue. If we're talking about our debt, is there any way we can reduce the borrowing we're doing? Is there any way we can reduce our budget expenditure in order for us to reduce our borrowing? So these are the things we have to look at. So the areas of government that we have should actually work on this. So when we're talking about trade policy, we also have to look at making sure that we'll continue to grow our export level and reduce our importations. And so what are those policies we're going to do to continue to grow our export in order for us to have a balanced trade, a very favorable balance of trade? So if we do all these things, over time, we may have to have a good result arising from the efforts made by these three arms of our economy.
Well, finally, before I let you go, it's impossible to talk about food inflation without touching on flooding. How significant will this year's flooding be on food prices in the coming months?
A lot. The impact is going to be heavy. The impact is going to be heavy, especially on grains. And it came at a wrong time when an item like rice will be needed in every household for the celebration of the season. So we're going to talk about two things. There's going to be a major drop in supply, and there's going to be a heavy increase in demand. And so when we have two of these things clashing, then the impact is going to be heavy on us. So we expect that the food inflation is going to rise more than this by November ending, and in fact in December. So these are the expectations we have arising from the flood and what it has caused to the agricultural subsector.
Right, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu, the MD CEO of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today, and thank you for your insights. Well, that's how much we can take on the program today. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
I met a friend on Facebook, a Zambian precisely, so we talked about migration, that's me coming over to Zambia for a good job. So I was into fumigation and clothes selling, mobile sales before I left. So when the thought came of relocating to Zambia, when I checked the economy of both countries, I found out that Zambia, though small, but their currency is quite better than Nigeria. Applied for visa, my visa was granted, I purchased my tickets, and then I left. I flew through Kenya Airline. That was on the 1st of June. I arrived Zambia on the 2nd. And then I called this my friend, and I told him I'm in Zambia. So where I was, he moved me to another lodge, a hotel. And that was where I was assaulted by him. He was even dragging my passport. He wanted to get my passport, my yellow fever vaccine card. But because I hid it very far, he couldn't get access to it. He tore my bag, went away with my BTA. It's $885, and then I didn't see him. He absconded. When he left, he didn't pay the hotel bills. He had gone with my money. I couldn't find my money in my luggage. So when I noticed that things were not what we actually planned, I had to become friends with a gardener boy in that hotel. So that previous night, I was asked to move out of the hotel because he didn't pay the bills. But I noticed that he and the receptionist were in good accordance, So I tried asking the receptionist, did that man tell you he was going to come back? He said no, and he's owing for a night, that I can't stay in that hotel. So they had to seize my luggage, seize my properties. I had to look for where to sleep. So that fateful night, I slept in an abandoned vehicle where I was almost gang raped by 3 guys. I had to start this Nigerian movie. I'm with HIV, I'm with this, I'm with that, So you want to, sleep with me and all that. So they made away with my travel documents, my return tickets and all that. They thought it was an envelope of money. So they went with it after tearing my jean and all that. But they couldn't have access to, because I started shouting. That was around 3 o'clock in the morning. I started shouting, creating scenes, so they ran away. When you leave Nigeria, and I left genuinely, but what I proposed wasn't what I got. So it was while I was in Zambia I discovered I was human trafficked. So it's real. When you go, you come back, you're alive, you just say, God, I thank you, and you pick up the pieces of your life and start all over.
The majestic river Niger, rising from the highlands of Guinea, it meanders through many countries to Nigeria, slicing through the commercial city of Onitsha and the beautiful Asaba on her way to the Delta, where she discharges into the Gulf of Guinea in the Atlantic Ocean. Stretching to about 4,000 kilometers, River Niger is the 3rd longest in Africa and provides livelihood to the people of the many communities on its bank. From here, they irrigate their farmlands and fish in its deep waters. Aside providing veritable mode of transportation, it is also a source of power generation. In fact, many people, particularly in Anambra and Delta states, depend on the river for their sustenance. Back in the day, canoes were the primary means of transportation on the river and served to convey goods and people from one bank to the other. But in 1965, 5 years after independence, the first Niger Bridge constructed by Dumez was completed. With the inauguration of the bridge, the main east-west connection in Nigeria was created. For Southeasterners, homecoming is everything. They return en masse at festive seasons to celebrate with kinsmen. But quite often, the frightening gridlock on the old bridge turns the homecoming trip into a nightmare. Femi Adesina recalls the harrowing experience of a friend who spent 6 hours trying to cross from one end of the bridge to the other.
That friend I had known long before now called me and said, please, what could I do? I said, what was the issue? He said he had been on the River Niger Bridge for 6 hours. 6 whole hours. He said, can I call somebody so that they can intervene and let the bridge flow? He said, 6 hours from the foot of that bridge, that when traffic flows, you can cross that bridge in 5-7 minutes. He said 6 hours they had spent on that bridge, and there was no hope that they would get to the other side.
But then there are those with more bitter tales to tell. On this same bridge, homebound families are known to have been trapped for hours and days on end.
I have slept there, so I can have a first-hand experience of the challenge. So in situations like that, it's a nightmare, because you may even come there thinking that you are just you have stayed 1 day. Some people tell you they have stayed 2 days, especially during festivities. It's usually a very major nightmare.
Aside the nightmarish experience of the users, the bridge also poses danger to motorists as a result of the heavy load it bears.
I've had awful experiences flying through that Niger Bridge. It has been an awful experience where we have a dilapidated bridge that for so many years it has lasted. It was so dilapidated that sometimes you'd be scared that you might end up having your car get into the river. So it's an awful experience.
There has been lots and lots of tales about that place. We've had records of the bridge quivering, motorists on the bridge actually feeling the quakes and tremors from the bridge. So it was, in one way or the other, going to end up being a nightmare. It was actually a catastrophe just waiting to happen.
Now, 57 years after it was built, the second Niger Bridge is coming up quickly to alleviate the plight of the people, reduce the load on the old bridge, and boost the socio-economic potentials of the Southeast.
The bridge is very nice. It's very good. So we believe that since the new Niger Bridge have passed, we believe that development can come.
Truly, the construction of a second bridge across the River Niger had long been identified as the panacea to the seemingly intractable gridlock and frustration on the old bridge. Until 2018, it was the subject of intense politicking. While President Shehu Shagari promised to build the bridge, General Ibrahim Babangida challenged Nigerian engineers to design it. From General Sani Abacha to successive governments, nothing much was done except perhaps for President Olusegun Obasanjo, who actually flagged off the construction of the bridge on the eve of his departure in 2007. His successor, Alhaji Omar Yaradua, had a short stay in office, but ahead of the 2015 general elections, President Goodluck Jonathan performed another groundbreaking ceremony and promised to do the bridge.
I remember that clearly. I was in my office, in the Sun newspapers, on that day, and I remember crystal clear that flag off and the things that were said about that bridge. And it's amazing that nothing happened. And then the then President Jonathan also went to that side. I remember clearly. That's why it's baffling that after all those body movements, nothing happened.
It was being used for politics. Every 4 years, they do flag off, they do ceremony. After the flag off, they remove everything, and then the bridge is forgotten. After another 4 years, after every election period, canopies are set, and then another flag off. So that was why when the president now gave his word, knowing who he is, that he's going to do this bridge, considered it a flagship project, and then followed through. Today, we're no more talking about flag off. We're now talking of commissioning.
The era that was most significant vis-a-vis Second Niger Bridge was the 16 years of the People's Democratic Party. Anytime elections were approaching, they would go there, make some body movements as if things were going to happen concerning the Second Niger Bridge. Once elections came and they got the votes of the Southeasterners, they disappeared. The next time, when elections were coming again, they would pretend that there was movement on Second Niger Bridge, and it would fizzle out again. Then came Muhammadu Buhari, a man from the northwest of the country, from Dara. In terms of affinity with the Southeast, it's not much, except that we're all Nigerians.
Interestingly, while little was done during the period of bumper harvests from oil sales, President Muhammadu Buhari, who arrived the scene at a time of lean financial resources, became the game changer. Without the boastful promises and grandstanding of the past, President Buhari plunged headlong into the project. Today, he has succeeded where others before him failed.
I think I'm going to say it unequivocally that President Muhammadu Buhari, that is one of the greatest achievements that he has done for Nigeria. I'm not talking about Southeast, I'm talking about Nigeria as a whole. Because without that bridge, there will be no movement from Southeast to North, from Southeast to West. So even going outside Nigeria, a lot of folks that come to Aba, buy goods, come to Onitsha, buy goods, now have to transfer those goods to other nation states.
It is encouraging, it is nice to see that for the first time, we actually have an administration that has looked into that problem and preferred a real solution in the new Niger Bridge. So I think it's a positive step, one that if more of our leaders would emulate, it would make Nigeria a much better place for us to live in.
The Second Niger Bridge is an engineering marvel being executed by Julius Berger, the international construction giant. Stretching to a length of 1.6 kilometers, the bridge is equipped with a 10.3 kilometer highway. The toll plazas in both directions of the facility have 8 lanes leading to the bridge. The Owerri interchange on the Onitsha-Owerri road is designed to provide direct access to the bridge from Obosi in Anambra State to Asaba in Delta. Construction of 2 secondary bridges at Amakom and Atani communities are also part of the total package.
All the 16 booths have been completed. The operation building also completed. Then the workshops and other ones, security house, they've been completed. Then the approach road on this project, we have 3 kilometers on Asaba end. Like I said, it's has been constructed. We only need to put the final layer of the asphalt. Then on the Onitsha end, the Anambra end, we have completed more than half of it.
On the eastern side of the bridge lies the ever-bustling Onitsha, a commercial hub that embodies the resilient and enterprising spirit of the people of the southeast. The Onitsha main market, reputed to be the largest in Africa, attracts visitors from across the continent and contributes to the hectic commercial environment of the city. As a result of the intense economic activities in Onitsha and beyond, traffic holdup on the old bridge is perpetual and frustrating. But the ongoing 7-kilometer approach road on the Onitsha side of the new facility will help to eliminate congestion and provide direct access to the second bridge. The idea is to connect the southeast and south-south regions seamlessly to the rest of the country.
You see, you are talking of a bridge that links Anambra State, southeast, Abia, Imo, to the entire Nigeria, coming through Lagos. All right, that is the route. All the containers that come from Lagos coming to the east, that's the route they use. It's quite enormous. It's something that, if you look at the economic benefit, you get very excited. There's quite a lot we can benefit from it, and it's going to impact very positively on the economy of the southeast.
It's going to lead to free flow of traffic. Of course, even our people who reside in other parts of the world, or in other parts of the country, once there is a period of festivities where all of our people return home to celebrate Christmas, Easter, and what have you, they will not hesitate. Most of them will come back home, and coming back home brings happiness home. Economically, economic will become viable because goods will move freely between other parts of the country and the southeast. Business will boom, and everything will pick up.
On the other side of the bridge lies the serene city of Asaba, the capital of Delta State and once the colonial headquarters of the Southern Protectorate of Nigeria. Strategically located on the bank of the river, Asaba serves as the main entryway to the southeast from the Lagos axis. Here, traffic is usually heavy on its main highway, but to ease the flow and divert vehicles to the new bridge, a 3.3-kilometer approach road is also being constructed.
The second Niger Bridge is the artery between the western part and the eastern part of the country and the rest of the country. You can't quantify what it will do economically. Even apart from the economy, how about the comfort of the people? Going home at festive seasons, our brethren from east of the Niger love to travel at Easter, at Christmas, and other festive seasons. You cannot imagine the relief they will have on that bridge. They have slept on that bridge before. My friend spent 6 hours last December, but people who slept till the next day have that experience. So the relief will come for them.
President Muhammadu Buhari is a man of few words. When in 2018 he gave assurance that his administration was going to deliver the project, many people may have taken it with a pinch of salt and perhaps waved it off as a familiar story, a tale by moonlight repeatedly told by past politicians without commensurate action. 4 years after, the dream is set to become a reality.
I thank God I'm alive to see the working of that second Niger Bridge. They have gone a long way. I am happy over what I see today. They are trying. They are trying. I pray, let the Chukwu Okike Abioma guide them. So far, they have gone.
It's been a subject of serious politicking over the years. So our people kind of developed a feeling that it will never come. But all of a sudden, here comes President Buhari, who now announced that he was going to do the bridge and immediately started work.
It waited this long because they made it political. Instead of really pulling up their bootstraps and working, they turned it to a political thing. That was why whenever elections were approaching, they would go there to hoodwink the people of the region to get their votes. They turned it into a political thing. But then came President Buhari, who was not interested in fooling anybody, who was not interested in the politics of it, was just interested in action.
Under this administration as well, the long-abandoned Onitsha River Port has been revived and may soon become a port of final destination for goods bound for the southeast, thereby decongesting the existing seaports in Lagos, Port Harcourt and other cities. Stakeholders are of the view that the second Niger Bridge will boost activities at the river port and complement the multimodal transportation initiative of the administration.
Today, we talk of multimodal forms of transportation. You talk about the road, you talk about the rail, you talk about water and things like that. So this multi-approach is something that has a lot to do with impacting on the economy. So here is the Onitsha River Port, that has to deal with the water, and then here is the second Niger Bridge that has to do with the roads, but both complement each other.
To ensure compliance to schedule and quality delivery, the project site has witnessed high-profile visitors lately. Aside the Minister of Works, Babatunde Fashola, who pays regular supervisory visits to the site, the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, recently led top functionaries of the federal government to see the state of readiness of the bridge.
The Federal Executive Council has passed tolling policy, national tolling. National is for the nation as a whole. So which one will be concession, toll fares, and so on, that's secondary. Important, let us finish this road.
Similarly, the Minister of Finance, Hajia Zainab Ahmad, also came calling with the Managing Director of the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, Mr. Uchaji, and Chief Executives of other relevant agencies. For the Minister, it was an inspection and assessment visit to be sure the 157 billion naira so far released has been well utilized.
I can report to Mr. President and say I have seen where all the 157 billion naira has gone to. This is a project that is very dear to His Excellency the President. It is designed to uplift the lives and livelihoods of the people of the southeastern part and the southwestern part of our country.
Indeed, the transportation industry has experienced unprecedented turnaround in the past 7 years. For a critical sector that supports socio-economic growth, it's never been this good. Apart from equipping the National Inland Waterways Authority to provide navigable pathways for the movement of goods and services, stupendous amount of resources have also been committed into developing a functional rail transportation system. In addition to the second Niger and local Oweto bridges, solid road networks that crisscross the country and connect the geopolitical zones have been constructed.
When the story of the Buhari administration is to be told, of course, we will talk about the second Niger Bridge, we will talk about the Bodo Boni Bridge, we will talk about the local Oweto Bridge, we will talk about Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, we will talk about the new ultramodern airport in Lagos, the one in Kano, the one in Port Harcourt, we will talk about the new runway in Enugu, we will talk about so many things.
Just as the River Niger provides legitimate employment and sustenance for many families, Construction activities at the new facility have also given jobs and livelihood to many people from the region. In addition to this legacy infrastructure, critical road projects and monuments are also being executed in the zone. Despite these huge investments, political detractors had actually tried to sell the false narrative of hatred and marginalization to some gullible natives of the area.
With the developmental strides that the president has taken to the south, it's not just the second Niger Bridge. What about the Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway, which the president made sure that that rehabilitation of such road is completed? Other giant projects that the president has started and also completed in the southeast is an evidence that the president indeed does not hate the southeast.
Don't forget that time was when Southeasterners, people of Igbo extraction, were controlling the levers of development. I'll give you an example. The Deputy Senate President from Southeast, Deputy Speaker from Southeast, Chairman Senate Committee on Works Southeast, Chairman House Committee on Works Southeast, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy Southeast, Secretary to Government of the Federation Southeast. And all through those periods, not 1 kilometer of our roads, federal roads, that were in terrible state, not 1 kilometer was addressed. And all these people I mentioned are from Southeast. Now it took somebody else who is not from Southeast to now address this infrastructural decay. Now face the reconstruction of these roads, this critical infrastructure. Just to mention a few of the things that this administration has done in the Southeast. And then somebody goes back and says he hates Southeast. How does you demonstrate hate?
This president bears malice to nobody. And he has cared for the Southeast as much as he cares for other parts of the country.
The second Niger Bridge is an important national asset. Aside easing traffic on the old bridge, it is an inter-regional integrator with the capability of boosting economic activities and development in the southeast. Already, the people are beginning to tap into the huge investment opportunities that come with the bridge.
You know our people, we are business people. We understand the dynamics and we take advantage of opportunities. It will bring a lot of development to the southeast, a lot. And even south-south, because the bridge is coming from Asaba to Onitsha and vice versa. So the development is not only for south, it's also for south-south.
Truly, when the story of the Muhammadu Buhari administration is told, the second Niger Bridge will be recorded among its greatest achievements.
When President Buhari would have been done and is gone to have his due retirement, and the story is being told, what would never be forgotten will be his footprints on the sands of time in terms of infrastructure.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Thanks for joining us on News Now at this time.
Protest in Lagos.
Thank you for joining us today on the newsroom. The Niger State Emergency Management Authority has said there's going to be one vote woman and the rampant illegal spectrum frequencies.
The banks took over the wheels on the Nigeria stock market today as sellers eased.
We are here today to celebrate my exhibition, for people to see what I've been doing for the past 10 years or so, because majority of the works that you are seeing on display are 10 years or 12 years old. because they are transformative in nature. Because over the years, I've been building on them idea-wise, according to what is going on within the country, what is going on in my environment, what is happening to me. So those are the things that informed whatever you are seeing on display here. The exhibition is more or less like the artist is doing his birthday, whereby people will come, wish you well. Some will come, pass one or two comments, compliment-wise or the otherwise. But majorly, exhibition in the life of an artist is more or less like an exposition, whereby people come to see what you have been doing over the years, and they want to interact what they are seeing. Probably that will inform some questions, reaction, observation, and reservation. I pick out 35 works out of about 100 that I have in the studio. I pick out 35. And those 35 were carefully chosen for people to see for the past 10 years how far I have been moving. You understand? Because I started my journey from the Polytechnic to Universal Studio of Art to University of Benin, to Obafemi Awolowo University, Kunle Adeyemi Studios. So when all these places that I mentioned, you will see the reflections in the works on display. Because when you are looking at the print, you should be reflecting at Kunle Adeyemi Studio. when you are looking about some of the expressionist work there, we should be talking about Ife. When you are looking at the landscape, we should be talking about Universal Studios of Art and some other things. It is not an easy feat, but the truth of the matter is this. As an artist, let me take it from this angle. He who God has given talent, God has given problem. Every artist will face one challenges or the other, especially when you are at the point of a creative, when you are creating the work. Creating the work is one thing, but when the idea hits you, how do you bring it forward? Bringing it forward is always a challenge. Most of the time when you visit the artist studio, you see piles of works that are unfinished. Not that the artist cannot finish them, but the original ideas that the artist is having probably is unable to connect or reconnect with it. So that is the reason why every artist will have one challenge or the other, especially in the area of bringing out your ideas. The area of the fund, materials, everything, that one is a general thing for everybody. Because for the artist, you have to source for your materials. And me as a painter, I have to look at the reactions of my materials, the colors, and every other thing. For the sculptors, they have to look at the materials they are going to use. Is it going to be wood carving? Is it going to be cold cast? Is it going to be bronze or any other thing? So we have challenges here and there. On the other hand, some artists, they have studio challenge. Where are they going to work? Probably the studio is not big enough. The studio is not conducive enough. For an artist, the challenge is very, very diverse. What inspires me most is life in itself. Life generally, your day-to-day activities, is one of the major things that challenge every artist. Every artist will draw inspiration from what is happening around us, your personal life, your environment, the political situation in the country. Those are the areas that we draw inspiration from. This is more or less a surrealistic expression of me trying to look at what is going on in the country. You understand? I merely use the lizard as a metaphor of what is going on in the country. I use the calabash more or less like a globe. That is the Nigeria, that's where you can see green, white, and green. You understand? And the general populace entirely. So I'm using this lizard here to represent Mr. President, because I titled it the flag bearer is the one that everybody will be referring to as Mr. President. And that is the chief of staff up there, the person in charge of the administration of the presidency or the governor office. And every other lizard there, you can see that we still have some other citizen, other lizard in green, white, green, here and there, you understand? And you see other lizard clouded in flag of other nation. This is Israel, this Germany or so, this is France, this is Brazil, this is Ghana, UK, China, sorry, this is Japan, and that is China. So I use all these lizards to suggest other nations that are benefiting from Nigeria. And you see the ministers, I use all these other lizards as the ministers, the governor in the country, you understand? So majority of our political leaders, they are underdealing, you understand? They are the one more or less eating the fruit of the nation without Mr. President knowing anything about it, because Mr. President is up there, you understand, discussing with the world power. Meanwhile, the commissioners, the ministers, the governors, they are down here trying as much as possible to milk the fruit of the nation. So now you can see this one here. This one have succeeded in going up, discussing with Mr. President in itself. So Mr. President is here, and this is China. Because when you look at everything that we are using today, from our phone to our road construction, everything, China are already taking over. So the Chinese are already discussing with Mr. The commissioners, the ministers, every one of them are underdealing at the background. That is why some ministers are more richer than the president, some governors are more richer than the president, even some local government chairmen are richer than the governor. So if we are unable to solve these corruptions going on here, it is going to lead us to that place where we have the other work there. That other work is what I title civil action. That if you are unable to solve the problem here, the country is likely going to go in flame, whereby we are going to have massive protests. And if at that point we are unable to solve that problem of that massive protest, it will lead us to the third work, whereby the nation will experience outright war. So you can see here, so that is why I titled this work Premonition. Premonition is that what I am more or less predicting what is likely going to happen if this issue of insecurity, corruption, nepotism, tribalism, if we cannot solve all those problems at this stage, by the time we get here, there is going to be massive unrest in the nation, whereby you see people will come all over. All Nigerians will come from wherever they are, and they are going to have massive protests in Nigeria. So if we are unable to solve that problem here, then we are going to move. That will lead us to the total breakdown of law and order, whereby the country will go in flame. You understand? The country will go in flame, well, whereby we are going to have outright war. As at that time, the issue of negotiation will not be there again. So at this point, if we are unable to still resolve it, then the country will disintegrate. you can see that at this point, the green, white, green is gradually fading off. So we have the fourth one that is suggesting that if at this point we can still not get it right, that the country will break into pieces, whereby everybody will go their different ways. So that is the political angle of this exhibition. So we still have the other aspect that deals with our cultural landscape, our day-to-day activities like the market scene that you can see there. That is our day-to-day activities that is happening around us. So that is the motive of this exhibition, to translate messages to people. Possibly, the artist might not have the right words to really categorize himself, to really explain himself better than those people who are really looking at them. The artist have done his job. It is left to the journalists, the writers, the art historians, for them to digest it and bring out whatever they think they are seeing. So for any artist to critically analyze or want to explain all that he has done, he or she will be doing a kind of injustice to him or herself. Art is inborn. Though we have some persons that they will go and learn how to draw, but as an artist, once you call yourself an artist, it means it is inborn. So whatsoever you are going to create will come naturally, either in the area of sculpture, painting, graphics, ceramics. It will come naturally. So the reason why the artist will go to school is for artists to be refined. Every artist at the tutelage were more or less like a crude oil. When you tap crude oil from the ground, it will have to go through refining process, whereby you get some other valuable materials from the crude. So from the point, your entry point into the school, you are crude. You go through the school for you to be refined. So when you are refined, that is when you either become a painter, a sculptor, a graphic artist, a cinematographer, or any other thing. So at that point, that is when you say that I'm a professional, I'm an artist, I'm a painter. But at the point of when you enter the school, you are nobody. How did I start painting? The journey was rough. It was rough, smooth, bumpy, but we are here today. I just want to cut it short.
Olojo is not a hidden phenomenon in the visual arts. He's been there, he's been paying his dues, and so whatever that's going to happen, particularly in the area of exhibitions or in the area of research in art, you can always trace it, to some few individuals who are making it work in this climb. So Olojo particularly is not a hidden name in visual art, so he's actually a very famous artist, so we must hear what happens sometimes when he's having a show like this. I have seen, just like the title of the exhibition, Entreaties, I have actually seen him breaking boundaries, into the areas of paintings, the area of media, mixed media. From the title of the exhibition, Entreaties, he has actually entered into so many areas of visual arts, printmaking, deep etching, painting, mixed media, and of course almost a three-dimensional work in just one exhibition. So you see a body of work that is very rich, you know, and the subject matters are very, very contemporary, and of course they're very cultural. You know, there are things that are in this environment, they live with us in the environment, and we take for granted sometimes, but the artist does not take it for granted. And so that is the way this exhibition is. You can actually see the artist that is conscious of lines, the artist that is conscious of the elements of design, the artist that is conscious of the principle of design. So some of these things are put together, and we can actually see that in this exhibition. As a matter of fact, he is actually well cooked. That's what I'm trying to say. The importance of exhibitions like these are very, very numerous, but I would be able to tell you some few ones. Well, the artist in his studio or in his studio is actually making research, working, using different materials to put down his vision or visual into form. And so the importance of exhibitions like this is to show an expose of what the artist has been doing over time. Like I said initially, body of work. So the artist is not a busybody person, but he's actually busy, focused on his work, you know, and from there he's able to, over time he will grow. And that is what we are able to see in this exhibition. So exhibitions like this measure the growth of artists. Exhibitions like this is able to let us know the type of research the artist is working on or he has actually put there. Exhibitions like this propel the younger ones, particularly some of us that are in pedagogy, some of us that are in education. You know, exhibitions like this propel the students, you know, to be able to see that if a guy is working this way, I think I will do better, or I think I will work harder. You know, so it's actually a form of encouragement, you know, to the younger ones, particularly the students of art. And more importantly, again, is a means of value or a measure of value to the clientele. How do I mean? A collector buys your work, you have been able to expose this, and a collector is interested in your work, and at the end of the day, it becomes a value to him. You know, if for instance he buys this work in a primary market this way, and then later on in life takes it to the secondary market, it becomes a value, you know. And so some of these things are things that we should be able to expose our people to, particularly in the area of exhibitions. I have actually come and I have seen some good things, some of the standards that Olojo is trying to preach. These are very good standards. 1, the works are of standard. 2, the presentation of standard. 3, the gallery is a standard gallery. And 4, people that I've seen so far, they are actually quality people. You know, we have collectors around here. We have dignitaries, particularly the artists that have actually matured, and we have the emerging artists that are here, and we have the students that are, so it's all encompassing, it's all combined. And so I think it's a successful show in the area of, you know, the viewing public. So it's a good show.
Very, very happy. You know, the Yorubas will say, when your child is growing big,
you feel happy. I am very happy. I taught him as a student. We were colleagues, and now he's rising up. So I'm happy with the progress he's making. The theme, the thematic contents are large, beautiful, starting from the masquerades, you go to landscape, you go to portraiture, you go to still life, and the composition. He has been able to show the dexterity of a good draftsmanship. And when you see the works, you will know that this man understands what art is all about. His colors are art colors, very, very rich. Well, somebody said it long ago, we don't document things. Olojo has been able to document so many things for us to see. And this is going to be for prosperity. You will wonder why the European countries don't pride themselves in their technology, but the art. Why? It's because art lives forever. According to Papa Hima, he said a country erodes and it does blows away. And nothing matters. 1,000 years makes silly science. Only those who practice art live for.
I'm happy with myself that I'm able to make it to this exhibition, yes. Without any doubt, the collections that we have here are a true definition of the several years of efforts that the artist exhibiting, Prince Soko, has put into his exploration of his art. It's a total definition of his transition, yes. Splendid. If one goes round, one could see how much he has evolved over time. Quite commendable. I'm impressed, yes. It is to bring to the society the consciousness that is responsible to bring to consciousness, calling the society into what a society should be. Art is a medium of expressing the happenings in the society, our environment, our culture, our general being. And when the artist comes up with an array of works that's a full gamut of our life, is to bring us to consciousness of what is happening around us and help the society to reevaluate itself and then forge a way forward. Yes, that's the purpose of art exhibitions, for us to get to know ourselves, where we are coming from, where we are now, and what we should be projecting forward.
I did IT in the side, like industrial training in his studio, and he has been saying a lot about doing a solo exhibition. So I'm happy to witness the solo exhibition because he has been saying this since. So I'm very happy to be one of the witnesses. I'm inspired. I'm very inspired because I see forms, landscape, this mixed media. I'm just informed because he's like exploring he's touching almost every part of this painting, line of painting. So landscape but I really know him as a very strong landscape painter, because Mr. Olojo, who's landscape, he just I've been a witness of it when he was doing landscape painting. He starts a painting from just one theme and he just creates an entire scene just from his head. I don't know how he does that, but maybe through experience and travels. He's just really good at it. Actually saw some works, and the title of the work though, I've seen so many work, like 3 or 4 works that I want to do something about it. Not really in my own way. The title just inspired me, like, okay, this is like one of them upstairs. It says polygamist. So it just inspired me, and I see so many, the shapes and colors, the flow of everything. It just inspired me.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, the truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance,
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places, the Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We dissect it so that you can understand it. Use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Many thanks for joining us on the newsroom. Adibayo. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has departed Abuja for Ottawa, the Canadian capital, for a 3-day state visit. According to a statement signed by the Senior Special Assistant to the Vice President on Media and Publicity, Laolu Akonde, this would be the first high-level visit by a Nigerian leader to Canada since the 2000, when President Olusegun Obasanjo visited the North American Union. The visit, he says, will deepen diplomatic ties between Nigeria and Canada, as the Vice President will meet the Canadian Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland and other top parliamentarians and members of the Canadian government in Ottawa. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike on Sunday night welcomed the presidential candidate of the new Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Kwankwaso, to Port Harcourt, the state capital, ahead of the inauguration of the Bhutan last Wednesday, commissioned the 8th flyover in the state located on Ada George Road, adjacent to the private residence of Wike in his country home of Rumwe in the Obio Akpo local government area of the state. The 5 aggrieved People's Democratic Party's governors on Monday met with other party heavyweights where they discussed fresh options as the hopes of reconciliation with the camp of the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar seems to be fading. The governors, who said their group will now be known as the Integrity Group, reiterated that they are open to reconciliation talks. They met in Lagos at the residence of the party from the party's former Deputy National Chairman Bode George announced the formation of the Integrity Group. At the end of the meeting, former Governor of Plateau State John Ajangu briefed journalists, explained that the group is still open to consultations in resolving the crisis rocking the opposition party. A health worker who delivered the first COVID-19 vaccination outside clinical trials has been recognized for her contribution to nursing. May Parsons, a modern matron at the University Hospital in Coventry, received an Endeavour Award as she graduated with a master's degree in health management from the institution. Parsons administered the vaccine to Margaret Kennan in December 2020 when she worked on the hospital's wards while she studied for her degree. The International Monetary Fund has said that Nigerians should brace for higher food prices and risk in 2023 due to the recent floods and high fertilizer prices. The Washington-based lender disclosed this in its Nigeria staff concluding statement of the 2022 Article 4 mission report. The IMF said high food insecurity was compounding the pandemic's effect on Nigeria's vulnerable, adding that despite Nigeria's limited direct exposures, the war in Ukraine was affecting the nation through higher domestic food prices. The IMF also predicts that since recent floods have affected agricultural productivity, that food prices would worsen in 2023. A shallow 5.6 magnitude earthquake shook Indonesia's main island Java on Monday, killing at least 44 people with buildings damaged and a landslide triggered. Adam's spokesperson for the local administration in Cianjur town in West Java, who like many Indonesians goes by one name, told newsmen that there have been dozens of people killed, hundreds, even maybe thousands of houses are damaged. Meanwhile, the country's meteorological agency warned residents near the quake to watch out for more tremors. Novak Djokovic claimed the 6th ATP Tour Finals title on Sunday with a 7-5, 6-3 victory over Norway's Kasper Ruud to match Roger Federer's record. The 35-year-old Serb, the oldest player to win the finals, ended in style after a season in which he missed 2 majors because of his vaccine status, but also claimed the 7th Wimbledon title. The win, which also brings a check for $4.7 million, came 7 years after his last ATP Finals victory and will lift him from 8th to 5th in Monday's new rankings. Well, that's all on the newsroom at this time. Many thanks for watching.
You can't travel on a wrong road for too long and expect to arrive at your destination early. Nigerians rode to nowhere. In 1999, after a windy period of military rule, Nigerians celebrated the advent of democratic governance, hoping that Obasanjo will bet the beginning of a new and prosperous Nigeria. Unfortunately, the long military rule, coupled with most military personnel who transmutated from military to civilian rule, created a military mentality that made Obasanjo turn himself into a headmaster, who treated the governors as errand boys who could be whipped into line for disagreeing with the headmaster, using state apparatus like EFCC, while corruption went on unabated. At the end, funds were wasted until date unaccounted for on a failed third-term bid. Umaru Musa Yar'Adua was subsequently promoted as president, and Nigerians celebrated the election of a graduate for the first time, even though he agreed that the election that brought him to office was far from free or fair. But he didn't last, and you don't want to go into the political intrigues until Goodluck Jonathan was allowed to come on board. In 2011, Nigerians again celebrated the election of a PhD holder as a president who claimed he had no shoes. But in 2015, after the man obviously have had some shoes, Nigerians wanted anybody but Jonathan. Away with his PhD, Even if it's a toilet paper certificate, we don't mind, they say. This ineptitude and incompetence was getting too much. But came Buhari, a retired general, with his anti-corruption stand and his mantra to fight insecurity to a standstill. And like others before him, promised to turn the state into the fastest growing economy in the world with massive infrastructure. Unfortunately today, Nigerians are rather leaving their own country massively as a result of insecurity, lack of basic infrastructure, inefficiency, ineptitude, and gross incompetence. Yet, with the 2023 election fast approaching, Nigerians are yet again building hopes on the same political parties and candidates who will still overpromise and deliver nothing, not because they don't want to, but because they are handicapped by the constitutional structural defect of the country. You can't run a car on diesel and expect it to move like a car who's running on gasoline or fuel. It's not possible. Nigeria is a country with a federal constitution but managed as a unitary system. Yet, the people blindly expect election to bring them development. No be juju be that. No wonder governors like Ben Ayade, Godwin Obaseki, Nyesom Wike and co. during election can hawk appointment of special advisors on a tray like someone hawking akara, appointing almost every youth in the state as SA, yet have no sustainable development plan for creating gainful employment or creating a thriving private business climate that can create jobs for such youth. Even as funds are allegedly laundered through this SA appointment process, yet nobody is worried. Yet, we must all get fixated at the center. Look at all the states of the major contenders at Adamawa, Anambra, and Lagos. None of them can boast of a public pipe-borne water. Yet we are shouting, go and verify. I created Lagos, or I will unify Nigeria. We never start. But second base, Jerry. Countries only develop when they domicile infrastructural development in the hands of the managers at the local level, except in the case of a dictator. Or maybe after the presidential election, we're expecting a dictatorial president. We have to create stronger federating units where the likes of Peter Obi can be free to harness the resources of the East to turn the region into a productive economy as against a consuming one without anyone from other regions bothering to go verify. Or where Bola Ahmed Tinubu can use his leadership experience to synergize the resources in the West and create a sustainable economy for them without him convincing other regions that it is his turn. And Atiku can then be free to not only unify the entire North against insecurity, hunger and banditry, but harness the potential daring for sustainable prosperity without being afraid of a Governor Wike's threats. The region can then contribute to a weaker center for the benefit of the weaker unit and protection of our territorial integrity. I will therefore advocate that Nigeria as presently constituted is not working, and no matter who wins the election, with the current constitutional structure, it can never move forward or bet a future of our dream. The earlier we collectively realize that we have traveled on the wrong road for too long and must halt our trip and redirect our coexistence before proceeding on the next journey, the better for all of us. Failure to do this, we will soon realize that after the election, that the various agitations from the federating region may have been suspended for the election and will be renewed with greater strength and vigor after the election, no matter the outcome of the election. For example, if Igbo win, the North and the West will start their own agitation. If the West win, the East will renew their own agitation for Biafra. And if the North wins, then the entire East and West agitation might crumble the country. I am not a prophet of doom, but that is just the reality of our future based on the constitutional road we dey travel now. Well, not everyone agrees with me though, but you can share your own thought with us by following us on all our various social media platforms shown on your screen, and also share your thoughts on previous episodes. Remember, the most difficult person to wake up is he who is pretending to be asleep. We all know it is not working, but we pretend that one person can change it. Make we deceive ourselves. See you next week.
The Osun Sacred Grove in Osogbo, Osun State, southwest Nigeria, is one of the last remnants of primary high forest in southern Nigeria. The site, a natural habitat that has been preserved for over 400 years, has served as both a pilgrim point as well as a tourist center for millions of people who visit the site annually to worship and celebrate the Osun goddess that is believed to inhabit the river that runs through the grove, giving the water the ability to heal and grant wishes of its believers.
Osun Grove happened to be a site that we all refer to as a living site. It's a living site just because activities that have been carried out over the years are still performed the way it used to be then. And secondly, it is a site where the worshippers do come to perform every 5th of the day, which means 5 days. They do come. For example, in churches, we go to churches during the week, but on Sunday, we christen it to be, we go to church on Sunday. Likewise, the Muslim goes to mosque on Friday. So despite the fact that the devotees do come interval, but they have a 5-day, which they call Ojose. Aside this, the uniqueness of this site is the name Osogbo was derived from this site. The appellation of the king was derived from this site.
From the entrance, one could feel the tranquility that comes with the well-preserved forest. A little further down comes another feeling of an elevated being's dwellings. This is the Osun Sacred Grove, one of the last sacred forests in Nigeria, along the banks of the Osun River, just outside the city of Osogbo, Osun State, southwest Nigeria. In this forest of 75 hectares of undisturbed areas of land, no residential building is allowed, no killing of any kind of animal, no fishing, no hunting or felling of trees.
Apart the fact that this is 75 hectares of the core zone and 47 hectares of the buffer zone. It's one of its kind in sub-Saharan Africa and second UNESCO World Heritage Site in Nigeria. The kind of people or crowd that comes around, one would be marveled why this. But it is a festival and a river that people believes in. Because of the sacredness, you can't cut a tree, you can't fish. And if you are not a devotee, there are certain activities you don't do so that you don't blame yourself.
The one path that cuts right through the grove is lined on either sides with sanctuaries, illustrations of traditional Yoruba deities and primary high forest. Adekunle Olatunji is the curator and site manager of the grove that has existed for over 4 centuries. On a tour of the sacred forest, Olatunji describes how the name Osogbo came about and what the grove stands for.
At Ipoleumu, some kilometers from here is in Iboku. There's an hunter. It's not just an hunter that going to the bush to kill rattle. It's a big hunter that hunts for elephants, bigger animals. In one of his sojourn, then from Ipoleumu looking for where they can get water, they now got to this site. On getting to this site, he was astounded. We were looking for almost a 40 kilometers from here, looking for water, still large water here. So he decided to go back to inform the king. My brother, we are hunting, I got to his place and I saw this river. So the hunter then was Oguntimeyin, while the king then at Ipoleumu is Laroye. So the two of them came down to the site, seeing what they wanted. So they decided to settle down at the bank of the river. So in one of their trying to rent the tent, a tree now fell into the river. And a voice came out of the river saying, Eyoma Darewolo, you have broken my time, but 84 Kokwa. So everybody the two of them were so shocked. Who is this person? Simultaneously, the spirit now answered, Oshoigbo, brother. Oshoigbo Pele. Oshoigbo. That was when they knew they are in Oshogbo. Literally meaning Oshoigbo. So now, they now felt, what is the next thing to do? In Yoruba then, if something strange happened, you do divination. During their divination, they wanted to know what's happening. So the Babalawo now said, Osun dwell here. You cannot stay with Osun. So they moved from the bank of the river, moved up. They now built a hut. That hut today is what we call the First Palace. And there's these promises between them that if we say we should leave this place, as a powerful person, they felt, how will somebody in the river be telling us to leave? So if we are to leave, what will you do for us? And I said, okay, if you are to leave, I will make you prosper. There is no war that will conquer you. Do my bidding, and every year there must be somebody from your lineage to come and bring object of appeasement to me every year.
But the grove wasn't always this beautiful and serene. In fact, there was a time it was completely infested with termites until an Austrian artist, Susan Wenger, and her husband Uli Bayer arrived to save the sacred monument. Wenger devoted some 50 years of her life to preserving the forest, and with the help of local craftsmen in the city, she transformed the sacred grove into a sculptural garden with compelling artworks and objects of habitation. Because of them, this 200 acres is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
When Mama started with the Osun Groves, she started at the area we called Ayedakun. Ayedakun is also part of the groves. Our first two sculptures are still there, where we have Obatala and Yemo. And she did that, not in one place, at the main shrine, Ebu Yamako, and inside the forest there are the sculptures there that she made. And Mama would do the art with meditating, like communication with the deity before doing any form of art. And Mama got her inspiration, from there because she stayed there for a while.
She was invited to come and see or assist us in treating this termite attack. In doing that, she now fell in love with the culture. So she is so powerful and mystic that if she sleeps, revelations of what she is expected to do for this place will come to her. Then she now felt, for somebody of her status, there's a need for her to have people to work with. Then she now got in touch with the Oba. Then there and then some interested indigenes that were into art then were introduced to her. So that was why they formed what we call a new sacred art movement. With this new sacred art movement, from instruction from her, that's why we have all these structures.
Shaded by a canopy of trees with a flight of stone leading downwards, the inner grove lies within a natural depression, marking the exact spot where the first palace of the founder of Osogbo was located. The ancient palace with its ornate pillars and elegant designs has remained in its original state for decades, and its sacredness upheld for as long as it stands. A short walk away from the palace will take you to the Osun River, which on a normal day looks just like any other river except for the utter stillness that pervades the atmosphere around it and the occasional carving in the midst of its waters. Otherwise called the Herbs of Osun, because according to its devotees, this calm flowing river transcends ordinary water. Everything about the Osun Grove revolves around this river. It's like the life of this place. You take it away, the entire place becomes lifeless. This is where the history of the Grove actually started from. And every year, thousands of devotees of the Osun Goddess converge by the bank of this river, where they pray, believing that all of their problems will be solved by the goddess.
If it is just a mere river, why the crowd? If it is just a mere river, why are people taking this water? I'm using this water in context because here we don't have river, we don't have water. Please, we don't have water. Once you are here, you want agbo, apps. People that needed one thing or the other comes here to seek for assistance from Osun Goddess. Believing, as I said, it's your faith. Believing he or she will do it for them. Whatever is being taken here is apps, is agbo. If you take it with your faith, be you me, you'll be healed. It has been proven beyond reasonable doubt.
While the Grove is a site of Osun's most sacred shrine, many Yoruba deities are also depicted here with sculptures that are centuries old and shrines where their devotees worship. Despite the sanctity attached to it, managing the Grove is not without its own challenges.
There's no lumber that will come into this site that will not pray will sleep off 72 hours. So that before we wake up, we would have cut down all the trees. We do have butchers, and despite the native laws that we do use to operate, because here you are not supposed to hunt. If you are caught, you'll be taken to the enforcement agency through the authority of Osogbo. And because of developmental pressure, as the town grows, you are bound to see people wanting to build closer to the site, thereby giving you problem. You have a challenge, but God is helping us through that native law. That native law, don't cut, don't fish. And aside that, the native law, I will tell you authoritatively, because if all of us goes home, we have night security if they are here. If you eventually decide that you want to catch any fish, you will cook it from now till that kingdom come, it will not done. So you will definitely put yourself into trouble.
Once sparkling and clear and home to a variety of fish, today the sacred river is murky and brown. It is now under constant threat from pollution from waste disposal and other human activities. Another fascinating thing about the Grove is the standalone suspended bridge right at the heart of the forest and just above the Osun River, built some 87 years ago. The bridge has no pillar holding it because they say the Osun Goddess forbids it. One of the unique things to see at the Grove is this suspension bridge. We understand it was built in 1935, commissioned in 1936, and the reason why the bridge was constructed was to enable people around here move goods now, especially palm products, from one end of the bridge to the other. And up till this day, the bridge is standing. It's one bridge a lot of tourists who come to this area love to see. Despite the gradual fading away of celebrated African culture and tradition, the Osun Sacred Grove is one cultural phenomenon that has not only stood the test of time, but also become a reference point for people from this part of the world. The Grove remains more or less pristine, leaving visitors with this sense of peace and a connection to the dwellings of an elevated being and the ancient Yoruba tradition.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Folashade Ogurinde. For the 9th straight month, Nigeria's inflation rate has seen a steady rise. In the month of October, the Consumer Price Index, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, accelerated to 21.09%, marking a 0.32 percentage points increase from 20.77% recorded in September. This is coming as food inflation in October 2022 also increased to 23.72% from 18.34% in a corresponding month last year. According to the NBS, the possible factors responsible for the increase include disruption in the supply of food products, increase in the cost of importation due to the persistent currency depreciation, and the general increase in the cost of production. But for more insight into this development, I'm joined now by Gospel Obele, the CEO and Chief Economist at Streetnomics Limited. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, what do you make of the latest inflation rate of 21.09%?
Yes, thank you so much for having me once again. Yes, so I'm not surprised that inflation has risen in Nigeria. It's largely expected due to the series of events, both internally in terms of policies that has been rolled out, also within the context of where the country is right now, you know, the political tensions in view and all that. Then looking more externally, you're talking about the geopolitics of things, you know, the Russian-Ukraine war, and as well as post-COVID-19 supply chain recovery dynamics as well. And the climate change economics or the climate change narrative. The gist is that all of these different buckets of events, internally and externally, have shaped where we are as an economy, you know, such that we are crippled more vulnerably and we are open or susceptible to rising costs of living, or or inflationary impact, as it were. More recently as well, in the Nigerian economy, we're seeing that the flood has hit, and what this flood simply means is a possible rise in inventory stock by suppliers of food, or those who are responsible for farm to market. And taking also into consideration that the Christmas period is around the corner, plus the fact that Q1 is going to be heavy on elections, it's really, really a call for worry what the future is in terms of the cost of living crisis, or if at all that inflationary impact burden heavily on food or energy prices on the average Nigerian will fizzle out soon.
Now, how do you think the CBN will react to this rise in inflation, especially as regards interest rates?
Well, I would expect that the CBN would still largely remain conventional in its approach. And that's because just for some reasons, I mean, central banks are being conventional across board globally, raising interest rates and all that, which is necessarily not bad. It's a necessary condition to sort of try to reduce the inflationary numbers or the inflationary impact on the economy. But the nature of inflation we are dealing with is a bit non-monetary and largely unconventional as well. So meaning that it's going to require more than just interest rates, to help us really beat down or solve this inflationary menace that we face. Let's not forget that the rise in inflation is also leading some form of cost of living crisis owing to the pressure points, food, energy, and these pressure points are redefining cost of living, in terms of increased cost of living and all that. So the central bank is likely going to do more increase in the interest rates, as in terms of following the bandwagon. And what we've seen is that central banks are leaning towards protecting financial markets more than the real economy. It's looking as though there is a trade-off between the financial markets and real economy. The real economy is now much more open to a worsening cost of borrowing conversation, which also permeates into cost of doing business and cost of product, services and the like. So I do not think that interest rates as a standalone are sufficient, in as much as, yes, they could be necessary as a good approach, but they are not sufficient within the context of the inflationary construct we're dealing with now in the times we live in.
Now, it appears rising inflation is not just a Nigerian thing, as global economies such as the UK are experiencing the same.
Yes, I agree. It's not a rising. Yes, I agree. It's not a Nigerian conversation. It's a global conversation. And to a very large extent, I think that the world has been a bit laid back, or institutional leaders have been a bit laid back in terms of watching interest rates rise. I also think that the era of interpreting the inflation we deal with, what I meant to say was that since the pandemic, we realized that factors outside non-economic variables, largely have a huge potential of shaping economic variables. And I think that's one major lesson of the post-pandemic or the pandemic period that a lot of institutional leaders never learned, even up until now. So meaning that the construct of the inflation we're dealing with right now is global. And it's global because you have a strong geopolitics conversation between Russia and Ukraine, on that table. You have evolving climate change crisis, which is a very serious problem. Vietnam is facing a lot around soya bean production. The geopolitical crises are impacting on grain production and a lot of sunflower oil and a lot of raw materials, and all that. All of these dynamics have impacted heavily on global supply chain and access to market. And that's impacting heavily on, food and energy prices and the like. So yes, it's a global challenge, but I believe that central banks, in partnership, more importantly, with fiscal authorities, need to begin to think of more non-conventional but clusterized approach, to dealing on a sufficient bit, to solving inflation as a problem that has risen within the times we are in. The era of allowing central banks just raise the interest rates without any collaborative approach on the fiscal side, especially being intertwined with what the central or monetary institution is doing, the era of just working separately would not yield any result. In fact, it's going to worsen the situation more, because with your actions or inactions also come perceived or actual uncertainties on the economy, and investors, the real sector and different players always act accordingly. So there is need for that collaboration across board, across nations of the earth, across institutional leaders in different contexts, and a lot more maturity a lot more maturity and rising up to address the major issues that are threatening global prosperity and growth, especially inclusive growth in the times we live in.
Definitely, it's impossible to talk about food inflation without touching on flooding. How significant will this year's flooding be on food prices in the coming months?
It's going to worsen, and that's not a good news, really. It's going to worsen. It's going to worsen because we are also not paying attention to what's happening, or we don't really understand or haven't properly interpreted what's happening. Food inflation is a major part of, this whole conversation, and that has been the most consistent penetration point of increased cost of living for the average, Nigerian, even globally, across board. And what that is also bringing to us is it's redefining, the state of prosperity, is redefining what we term as newer levels of poverty traps. Even if people earn more money or they have more cash, that disposable income or the disposable spend is being shrinked because the cost of living or the cost of getting the basic necessities are being hijacked every day. And with the flood crisis in Nigeria, what that simply means is that the supply chains have been further broken or arrested. And because we've not had that visionary leadership to begin to lead efficient food security systems, good storage systems and all that, there's a huge gap that is available. And because nature abhors vacuum, that would be reflected in increased prices of goods and services, both in the market as at now, plus the fact that inventory stock will also increase and will also lead to further increases in the future, as there will be concerns around harvesting crops and all of that when the time is due, next year and all that. So the ripple effects of the flood or climate change economics in this conversation cannot be estimated as at now, because one is still a developing story, but we know for sure that the price of food is going to go high, and the price of food goes high. A lot of people, especially Nigerians, are going to be poorer, especially Africans, are going to be poorer for it because they may not be able to afford the basic 3 square meals at the nutritional levels they need for their growth and human productivity.
Well, indeed, Gospel Obele, the CEO and Chief Economist at Streetnomics Limited, thank you very much for your time and your contribution on the program.
Thank you for having me, Folashade.
Well, we'll take a break here, but Money Matters returns shortly. To stay with us. Welcome back to the program. On its launch in late October 2021, Nigeria became the first country in Africa to enable the use of a legal tender digital currency for daily financial transactions. Despite having a year to promote and encourage the adoption of the CBDC, a Bloomberg report found that less than 0.5% of Nigerians are using the digital currency. This means that less than 1 in 200 people in Nigeria are active users of the E-naira. During a ceremony held by Nigeria Central Bank to celebrate 1 year of the E-naira, its governor, Godwin Emefiele, explained that E-naira has recorded around 700,000 transactions worth over 8 billion naira. Now, despite the seemingly positive statistics, reports show that around 1 million Nigerians had downloaded the E-naira digital wallet. This suggests that over 300,000 wallets have been opened but are not in use. Now, to speak more on this, Sam Chidoka, the Managing Director and CEO, Kairos Capital Limited, joins me now. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, the E-naira has marked its first anniversary. How would you rate Africa's first digital currency 1 year after its launch?
Okay, thanks for having me. I think that in terms of the E-naira, digital coins and digital system of payment is the way to go. The cashless economy is the way to go, is the way of the future, is the way of today and tomorrow. Cash itself, in terms of when we spend our money in cash, is difficult to maintain. If CBN spends a lot producing cash, so the digital currency is the way to go. However, with the E-naira, we haven't seen the type of surge in transactions that we expected to see. The report we saw shows that about 8 billion naira worth of transactions have been done in the E-naira. But if you compare that with the reports we have from NIPST, NIPST records that between January and August 2022, there was a transaction value of over 200 trillion naira on their e-platforms. So whether it's by bank transfer or NIP transfer or mobile transfers, over 200 trillion naira worth of transactions has been done just in about 7 to 8 months. So that shows you that the E-naira, when compared to other forms of banking transaction, is lagging behind. However, it's a step in the right direction, and if we combine what the E-naira is doing and other digital forms, it continues to enhance the possibility of a digital economy and a cashless economy, which is, I believe, is the way to go.
It appears that there is a lag in acceptance and usage of E-naira in Nigeria. What factors do you think are responsible for this?
So again, I think that we have sort of overgrown the E-naira as a country. It's just like when if you remember, some people tried to initiate mobile money in Nigeria, and it hasn't quite gotten the traction that mobile money got in a place like Kenya when you have the M-Pesa, right? Because in Nigeria, most banks have a banking app, and just on your phone, you can do transactions. So why do you want to switch it for another means of transaction, right? Because most people can very conveniently make transfers, receive monies, pay for products and services using their banking app that is on their phone, right? Or on the mobile app that is on their tablets or on their laptop. It's difficult to begin to unlearn that and try another system. So E-naira is competing with other forms of digital payments, right? And it's difficult to change when people have gotten used to a system of payment.
You recall that part of the motive for the E-naira was to serve as an alternative to other digital currencies such as cryptocurrency, which the CBN is of course not in support of.
Well, if that was the motive, if that was the drive to create an alternative to cryptocurrency, then we can say that it hasn't achieved that, because if you look at the volumes still being traded in those coins and cryptos, it hasn't quite abated in any form or shape. Even when people have taken some losses, because in recent past some of those currencies have taken a beating, right? But yet people are trading in those currencies. So in terms of that, the E-naira hasn't quite achieved that. I do not think that the E-naira will be able to replace those other digital currencies in terms of cryptos, because remember that the cryptocurrencies are way beyond Nigeria. In terms of volumes being traded, those volumes are much higher. In terms of peer-to-peer transactions, in terms of counterparties, you're trading with counterparties across the world. But the E-naira is basically, at the moment, limited to our geographical construct at the moment. It's supposed to be a currency, a form of digital form that should transverse the geography of Nigeria, but it hasn't quite achieved that. So I do not think that it will overshadow digital currencies in terms of cryptos in any time soon.
Projecting into the future now, do you see the E-naira gaining traction among Nigerians?
Well, I can't see it, to be honest. I think that, like anything, it will grow on some people. Some people will use it more than others will. The volumes will inch up a bit. But when you're going to compare that 8 billion naira to trillions of naira in terms of 200 trillion naira being done in 8 months using other digital forms, it's going to be quite a challenge. So those who use it will continue to use it. Some people will still experiment with it and just want to know what it is about. But on a whole, I think that if you look at the whole digital currency space, whether it is E-naira, whether it is transfer using USSD, whether it is banking using a banking app or your mobile app and all of that, or under your mobile platform, those things will continue to grow. As those continue to grow, reliance on cash transactions should naturally reduce, especially when you add POS transactions as well, and we're growing in number of merchants and all of that. So cumulatively, the digital space will grow. In that space, I think the E-naira will still struggle a bit.
Well, Sam Chidoka, Managing Director and CEO, Kairos Capital Limited, thank you very much for your time and your contribution. And it's a wrap on the program. See you again next time. I am Fola Shadi Ogurinde. Bye for now.
The people are sovereign. Inept political leaders can be replaced. Foolish policies can be changed. Disastrous mistakes can be reversed. Electors, be vigilant. Nigerian democracy has come of age, and now is the time for the citizen or electors to brace up to time. The election season is cast as an acid test for the preparedness of the electors in Nigeria come 2023. This is the time we should go to the polls with a conscious resolve to enforce the democratic ethos and principles for the emergence of good governance in Nigeria. The pursuit of one man, one vote is where all of us must stand and for once change the ugly political system forced on us by the enemies of Nigeria. If we all refuse to be used to subvert the process, and we stand by the dictates of our conscience, we can close a deal for the development of Nigeria. We've got all it takes to be great, but lacking behind because we've got no leadership and not a formidable electoral system to bring the very scarce but good leaders to power. So, let us make 2023 a deal to begin a new story for the pursuit of happiness and the emancipation of our people from the clogs of wickedness and agony to the place of purpose and wealth. We must overthrow the criminal establishment that has held us ruthlessly to failure. Now is the time. We must make 2023 so redemptive that the cartels will have a rude awakening. My advocacy today is to reassure us that Nigeria has not failed. Leadership has failed, I agree, but this country hasn't. Today, therefore, let us pledge to a new vision, built on the principles to reverse the failures of leadership and ignite the process of a new beginning through the ballots. This assignment cannot be outsourced. We must all engage in the process for absolute change. We can do this by refusing to sell or buy votes, by respecting our allegiance based on the exercise of our civic responsibility, by being law-abiding, by ensuring we and our loved ones and friends are not recruited as thugs to disrupt democratic processes and electioneering, and by being tolerant to people's choice at the polls. This calls for vigilance. We must, on that day of election, do more than voting. We must protect our votes and ourselves from the enemies of the country. We have a duty beyond casting our votes. We must report to the law enforcement agencies once we suspect compromise of the election in our polling units. We shall birth a new system if we agree to put an end to impunity. If we resolve properly in the issue put forth and act accordingly, we will have gotten our bearing politically and drive a hitch-free transition to the glory of God and the benefits of humanity. I shall go to Rabbi again.
My name is Ali Shedu. I'm from Kogi State. I live in Abuja. I'm a fashion designer tailor. On that last year, October 2020, early in the morning, I fetched water for my wife. After my praying, I fetched water for my wife around 6. I went to go my working place for St. Franco. And when I reached junction for police somebody, I see crowd. Everywhere was blocked. I tried to find my way. I cannot find my way. I went back to house again. Around something 10 to 11. I said, make I find my way go work. So I get family. My daughter is a 2 month that time. I can't find my way. I just stand. They leave people where they protest. I'm not a protester. I'm a fashion designer. I tailor where the hustle up and down to feed my family. After then, police just came. They shoot. The next thing when I see, I just see my leg. They cover. I'm not carry my leg again. Where would it get? They thought they do everything. They clean my body and my legs. They clean everything. We go and do another X-ray again to see how the inside is. Where we did the X-ray after then, the doctor charged us 400 and something. But since then, my brother he not have much like that. So maybe they carry me go Gogolada hospital, general hospital for Gogolada. One doctor waiting for the hospital come bring one number. Said na youth where they in charge of this NSAS. Anything will happen to somebody like this, they feel help. Actually, we try the number. By God's grace, the person where they pick the call. I'm talking to them. Now you know the person where pick my call. Then a woman on a man. I don't know. He and the doctor speak. She transfer the money to the doctor. They start the treatment. People Nigeria they can do money from almost like 60,000. One day, all they hear say I will hear and say all the panel, the people where panel, where government choose for this thing, anything where this thing affect, they help, they make the report. We go to National Human Rights for inside town. We almost like 5 or 6 people. The guy where the parent where they kill in children for where bullet hit for chest. They follow us go that time. Where we reach there, we stay for gate. Now we they sing. Now one person come call us and make one of or the person where they in charge make it enter inside, make go meet the people they there. After they meet the people, they come and say make they come tomorrow. The next day, almost like 3 days, my brother called them. They said the people never answered them very well. That the government they bring up black paper and they need to bring white paper if they want to do better thing for people this thing affect. But today I never hear from them because this thing, this police don't make this life tire me because this my leg now, no feel and do anything. Even the bullet is still there on my leg. The place where the bullet dey, doctor said they no fit remove am for now because they the way the vein dey. Now here in there, they no fit remove am for now. Let the bullet come out that place where in there. If they want to remove am, they could come enough harm to my leg. Even like this, my leg not move am like this. But I try to move am like this. I fit do am. If I want use am do work self, but if I want try to use am do work, make I dey use am do exercise. I no fit use am do work well. I dey use industrial machine. But you can press machine like this, the thing to carry and come back. I'm not free carry and come back. I just need help from Nigeria government, need help from police, please. They don't scatter my life. I'm not all this will happen to me. I'll not be expected. Since almost a year now, please stay for us. How are you they feel now? Let go of the question. I don't know. But my brother always try for me. But I don't feel like my brother forever. Just thank God say I see their life because my time now reach. Now let God know how he takes in my life. Me, I don't even know if that bullet you hit me for tail, hit me for head. I don't know how God even give me a miracle, how he takes in my life. I don't know, sure. But I thank God for everything. I just thank God for everything. Great God saved my life.
thanks for joining us on News Now at this time.
Protest in Lagos.
Thank you for joining us today on the newsroom. The Lagos State Emergency Management Authority has said there's going to be one vote woman and
the rampant illegal spectrum frequencies. The bulls took over the news on the Nigeria stock market today as sellers eased.
Many thanks for staying with us on the newsroom. I am Abisola Adebayo. Ekiti State Assembly Speaker Gboyega Arebishogun has been impeached and suspended indefinitely by members of the Assembly. Olubunmi Adelugba has now been elected as the new Speaker. 17 out of the 25 members impeached the Speaker and elected a new one on Monday morning. The Assembly complex had been sealed as members were embroiled in a controversy following the death of the former Speaker Fuminiyi Afuye. The 66-year-old Afuye died at the Ekiti State University Teaching Hospital on October 19 after suffering cardiac arrest. A month after his demise, the Parliament held an election and Arebishogun, who is the representative of Ikole 1 constituency in the Assembly and a two-term lawmaker, emerged as the Speaker. A chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, Adedeji Doherty, says though the party made some mistakes while in power between 1999 and 2015, such mistakes can be corrected if Nigerians give the party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, a chance to become president in 2023. Doherty, who is the chairman of the Atiku Okowa Presidential Campaign Council in Lagos State, made this known on Monday in a television interview. He said although the PDP has made some mistakes all along the road to making Nigeria great, it is time to give the party another chance to make good its promises. Kano State Governor Abdullahi Ganduje has assured the people of Kano State of free and fair elections during the 2023 general election. The governor said this while addressing the All Progressives Congress supporters who organized a 1 million man march in support of the presidential candidate of the party, Bola Tinubu. According to the governor, the APC and other parties in the state are on board with the idea of free and fair campaigns and election. Speaking with newsmen at the event, the governor, who was visibly happy with the attendance, said the march has surpassed 1 million and heading to 5 million. China's capital has warned that it was facing its most severe test of the COVID-19 pandemic, shutting businesses and schools in hard-hit districts and tightening rules for entering the city as infections ticked higher in Beijing and nationally. China is fighting numerous COVID-19 flare-ups from Zhengzhou in central Henan province to Chongqing in the southwest. It reported 26,824 new local cases for Sunday, nearing the country's daily infection peak in April. The latest wave is testing China's resolve to stick to adjustments it has made to its zero-COVID policy, which calls for cities to be more targeted in their clampdown measures and stay away from widespread lockdowns and testings that have strangled the economy and frustrated citizens. The Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Pengasan, has threatened to commence a fresh industrial action following the sacking of its members in an oil-firm, Fedos Nigeria Limited. Pengasan Assistant General Secretary, the Port Harcourt Zone, Tamunodapu, disclosed this in Port Harcourt on Sunday. The union said the firm violated the extant labor laws by terminating the appointment of 4 of its members who joined Pengasan, adding that they were exercising their absolute rights as guaranteed in Section 40 of the Constitution. Dapu urged all the branch chairmen and chapter chairman of the association to be on red alert for the imminent strike. At least 46 people have been confirmed dead after a 5.6 magnitude earthquake tore through the island of Java, Indonesia on Monday. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the quake struck the Ganjor region in West Java at a depth of 10 kilometers, sending residents scampering for safety. The disaster left 700 more people injured, while several houses and properties were destroyed in the wreckage. Meanwhile, more details are being gathered to ascertain the magnitude of damage and casualties in the incident. Cristiano Ronaldo insisted on Monday that his explosive row with Manchester United would not impact Portugal's chances at the World Cup as they prepare. Last week, superstar Ronaldo lashed out at Premier League club United and the team's coach Erik ten Hag in a television interview after being relegated to a peripheral role this season. Ronaldo, who is set to start his 5th and likely final World Cup, was suspended for the Premier League club's 1-1 draw at Chelsea after refusing to come on as a substitute against Tottenham last month. Well, that's the latest on the newsroom. Many thanks for watching.
Today, we have to thank the Nigerian Navy for going after the oil vessel MT Heroic Eagle that stole our oil and escaped to Equatorial Guinea. When it happened on the 8th of August 2022, I asked what the Nigerian Navy was doing that a vessel 3 times the size of a standard football field could come into our territorial waters, siphon crude oil and leave without detection. Well, the Nigerian Navy chief mentioned how they had stopped the vessel for not having official papers to lift oil, and within 24 hours, papers showed up from above that the vessel was indeed certified to lift oil. Equatorial Guinea, however, was not having none of that. They arrested the vessel and its crew. After 3 months of negotiations with the Nigerian authorities, they finally agreed to release the vessel to Nigeria. I heard someone say, hope that's not the end of the matter. The Indian captain and crew of the vessel have reached out to their government to rescue them. Nigeria, however, is bent on prosecuting them for oil theft. Hopefully, the powers from above that prevented the Nigerian Navy from arresting this rogue vessel in the first instance realize that our eyes are on this particular vessel and we won't let the matter go. We know they will press buttons. Hopefully, they all have their day in court. Authority, stealing, as Fela sang, or democracy. Accusations have flown at people in power for being complicit in oil theft. Also, right after awarding government Ekpemupolo, known as Sompolo, a 48 billion naira pipeline security contract from the end of August 2022, several rogue vessels have been caught and illegal pipelines discovered, suggesting that the authorities may have been looking the other way before now. Burning of one rogue vessel even caused the controversy as senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, accused the authorities of trying to cover something up. Thanks to Nigerian journalist Ovieteme George for following up on this matter and going with the Nigerian Navy ship Ikene to Equatorial Guinea to arrest the MT Heroic Eagle. We should never give up on demanding accountability. That's true democracy. You and I will succeed in 2022 and indeed 2023.